Long before humans learned to mark time, before memory could be stored in stone or bone, the forests and dry savannas of the ancient world were already shaped by decisions that carried weight beyond a single life. In these layered landscapes, survival was never guaranteed, even for the strongest. Strength alone did not rule these ecosystems. Survival belonged to those who understood limits, hesitation, and consequence. Among the tall grasses and scattered acacia, where dust clung to fur and scales alike, the tiger moved as it always had, silent, deliberate, shaped by millions of years of refinement into a creature of precision and hunger. The tiger's body carried the history of pursuit. Every muscle was built for sudden violence, every sense tuned to the smallest fracture in stillness. Its ancestors had learned that hesitation meant starvation, and that certainty, even when wrong, was often better than delay. This lineage had succeeded by overwhelming prey before resistance could form. Deer, wild cattle, even young elephants had fallen to this strategy. The tiger's world was one where dominance was proven through motion, where the first strike often decided everything. Yet the ancient world did not reward patterns forever. It waited patiently for them to fail. On the ground ahead, the porcupine moved slowly, unafraid of speed. Its body told a different evolutionary story, one written not in pursuit, but in refusal. The porcupine did not flee, it did not need to. Its survival depended on a different truth, that not all predators are willing to pay the price of contact. Each quill was a record of this truth, hardened over generations into a forest of needles that transformed vulnerability into warning. Pain in this context was not an accident, it was a message refined by time. Nearby, the pangolin followed an even older script. Armored not with aggression, but with withdrawal, it carried the memory of extinction pressed tightly against its scales. When threatened, it did not fight or run. It folded inward, erasing its soft parts from the world. This behavior had emerged slowly, shaped by an environment where endurance mattered more than victory. The pangolin's ancestors had learned that survival did not always require dominance. Sometimes it required becoming unreachable. These three lineages, predator, defender, and withdrawer, were not destined to meet by design. They were brought together by hunger, scarcity, and the narrowing choices of a dry season. As water receded and prey thinned, the tiger's decisions became sharper, more urgent. Hunger compressed time. It reduced the future to a single question: act now or weaken later. The porcupine and pangolin, bound to the same shrinking landscape, carried their own calculations, shaped not by desire but by caution. The moment of encounter was not dramatic, it never is. There was no signal, no declaration of intent, only a shift in attention, a tightening of muscle, a subtle realignment of the world around a single moving body. The tiger advanced, drawn by size, by movement, by the promise of sustenance. It had learned to read the language of prey, but this language was unfamiliar. The porcupine did not flee, it turned, presenting its back, transforming its body into a living barrier. The pangolin, sensing vibration and pressure, curled into itself, becoming a sealed shape against the earth. This was the pivotal moment, the kind that rarely leaves physical evidence, yet echoes across generations. The tiger had to choose. Its instincts urged forward motion, a test of force against resistance. But evolution is not blind momentum. It is a record of failures as much as successes. The tiger's ancestors had encountered creatures like this before. Some had survived the lesson, others had not. The first contact was brief and decisive. Quills pierced flesh, not deeply enough to kill, but enough to teach. Pain traveled faster than thought, interrupting the tiger's momentum, breaking the rhythm that defined its hunting style. The tiger recoiled, not in fear, but in recalibration. Pain was information, it always had been. The porcupine remained unmoving, its defense unchanged, its strategy proven once more. The pangolin stayed closed, patient, enduring. This single hesitation mattered more than the strike itself. In ancient ecosystems, hesitation reshaped behavior. The tiger did not retreat far, but it did not press forward either. Its decision to disengage was not weakness, it was adaptation. Over time, such moments accumulated, teaching predators to recognize certain silhouettes, certain postures, certain costs. These lessons did not spread through language, but through survival. Those who ignored them vanished. Those who learned lived long enough to pass on caution. For early humans, still scattered and vulnerable across similar landscapes, these interactions formed the silent backdrop of existence. Humans were not observers separate from this system, they were embedded within it, learning from the same pressures. The sight of a predator recoiling from a smaller creature was not lost on hominid minds struggling to understand power. Fear was universal, but so was curiosity. Humans watched and learned, not consciously, but through repeated exposure to cause and effect. The porcupine's defense and the pangolin's withdrawal represented a truth that early humans would eventually internalize. Survival did not always belong to the strongest or the fastest. Sometimes it belonged to those who made themselves costly to attack or impossible to consume. This understanding would echo forward, shaping human tools, shelters, and social strategies. Pain as deterrence, armor as protection, withdrawal as survival. The tiger, wounded but alive, carried this lesson into its future hunts. It adjusted, it selected differently. Evolution does not demand perfection, only persistence. The porcupine and pangolin continued their slow movements through the world, unchanged by victory, because their strategies required no escalation. They had already reached equilibrium with their environment. As seasons turned and generations passed, these silent encounters accumulated into patterns. Predators learned restraint, prey learned confidence, humans learned both fear and ingenuity. The ancient world did not reward recklessness for long. It shaped behavior through consequence, carving wisdom into muscle and bone. In the end, there was no final resolution. No victor remained standing over the fallen. The forest returned to its quiet equilibrium, carrying forward the memory of the encounter without recording it. The tiger survived to hunt again. The porcupine continued to walk unchallenged. The pangolin uncurled and moved on. Time absorbed the moment, as it always does. These were not isolated events, they were fragments of a much larger story, one written across millions of years, where every decision left an imprint. Long before humans named fear or strategy, the world was already teaching both, and it continues to do so, quietly, without judgment, beneath the same sun that watched the first predators hesitate.